of the City School District of Albany, which is to work in partnership with our diverse community to engage every learner in a robust educational program designed to provide the knowledge and skills necessary for success. Superintendent Adams, do you have a report for us?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much, Madam President, members of the board. I would like to begin tonight with a word of thanks to each member of the Superintendent's Cabinet, our administrators, our BLTs, and our Board of Education for the excellent work in developing our 2019-2020 budget proposal and facilities referendum. It truly was a team effort. Your responsible, engaged leadership has helped us develop proposals that we believe will support our students and families in the coming school year and beyond. I would also like to thank Deputy Superintendent for Business and Finance, Mr. Bill Hogan, for his expert guidance through this process. I know this represents the last budget hurrah for Mr. Hogan, and he has been an excellent steward as always. It takes countless hours from numerous individuals to develop a budget proposal that supports the programs and services our students and families need and deserve, while also respecting the fiscal realities of our community and remaining fiscally responsible over upcoming years. We are looking forward to talking with our families and community members about the proposals in the upcoming weeks. We have a budget flyer here tonight with highlights of the budget proposal and facilities referendum. We have we have had two community budget presentations in recent weeks, and we have a dozen more scheduled between now and the vote on May 21st. If you would like to schedule a presentation for your organization before the vote, please contact the Director of Communications and Operations, Mr. Ron Lesko, at 475-6065. Finally, a reminder that the voter registration deadline is May 6th. If you are at least 18 years old, a citizen of the United States, and a resident of the City of Albany for at least 30 days, you are eligible. If you are not currently registered to vote, you may do so with the Albany County Board of Elections. We also have registration forms available here tonight. You can also call the County Board of Elections at 487-5060 or our School District Board Clerk, Sierra Sturdivant, at 475-6015. Our Hall of Fame Selection Committee met earlier this month to consider our nominees for the class of 2019. I am proud to announce that the Selection Committee has chosen 6 individuals for induction this fall. The members of the Hall of Fame class of 2019 are former varsity coach and Albany School of Humanities physical education teacher, Leslie Baguki. Ms. Baguki is the only coach in Albany High School history to win a team state championship. She led the 1997 girls basketball team to great achievement. Former Board of Education President Tanika Frost, a 1994 Albany High School graduate, Ms. Frost currently serves as a city court judge in Schenectady. She previously served as a chief administrative law judge for the New York Department of State and also was director of the State Office of Administrative Hearings. She served our board from 2004 to 2008, and she is also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. That wasn't really in the notes, but I had to add that little point. Elizabeth Kearney is a 1999 Albany High graduate and one of the most accomplished swimmers in school history. Her list of accomplishments and achievements includes the 1998 state championship in the 200 freestyle. Bill Ritchie served as the president of the Albany Public School Teachers Association from 1992 until 2008. He worked as a guidance counselor in the district for 30 years, serving students at Albany High and at William S. Hackett Middle School. Damon Shepard is one of the top basketball players and student athletes in the Capital Region during his time at Albany High. He was the Time Union's co-player of the year in 1997 before moving to the U.S. Naval Academy. He was a starting point guard for the midshipmen and went on to a 10-year career as an officer in the Navy. In addition, he has an economics degree from Navy. Mr. Shepard holds an MBA from LaSalle University and a master's in real estate with a concentration in development from Georgetown University. He is active professionally in the real estate, construction, and development fields. The late Sonia Michelle Smith Summers served with distinction in the U.S. Army for 20 years following her graduation from Albany High in 1991. She served as a drill sergeant, sergeant first class, and near the end of her military career as head of the protocol section for the 3rd Infantry Division. She earned Drill Sergeant of the Year distinction for the 1st Engineer Brigade, two service medals and Service Army Achievement medals, and 6 Good Conduct medals, among numerous other commendations. I would like to extend my congratulations to each of the members of the class of 2019. Please save the date of Friday, October 4th for our annual Hall of Fame induction dinner at the Italian American Community Center. The dinner, once again, will be a highlight of our homecoming weekend activities. My last item tonight is a reminder that spring recess begins this Friday. All of our schools and offices will be closed in observance of Good Friday. Our schools will also be closed all of next week. Our administrative offices at Harriet Gibbons Student Services Center will also be closed next week. This includes central registration, transportation, and special education offices. Our administrative offices at Academy Park will be open next week. I wish everyone a restful and safe spring break, and I look forward to returning Monday, April 29th.
Thank you, Superintendent Adams. That was a very westful report. This is the time in our meeting we set aside to hear from district residents, parents, students, and other members of the public. We welcome community input about the decisions we are making. In addition to accepting comments during this public comment period, we also accept comments by email, phone, or postal mail. While you are making your remarks, please keep in mind that by law, information about individual students and specific staff cannot be shared. Every student and every staff member deserves to know that concerns about them will not be aired in public. Also, we ask you to keep in mind that public comment is not the best place to first alert the district to a concern you have. Please share your concerns first with relevant staff, such as the teacher or principal. If you feel your concern is not addressed adequately, you may appeal it to the person's supervisor up the chain of command, if necessary to the superintendent. Decisions made by the superintendent may be appealed to the board. Finally, please note that the board generally will not respond during public comment. If you need a response, please consider contacting us by email, phone, or mail. When I recognize you, please state your name and city of residence. You're restricted to a maximum of 3 minutes and will be given a 1-minute notice and a 10-second notice by Ms. Lang, and I will notify you if your time has expired. Our first speaker tonight is Dahlia Herring.
Better? Better, okay. Dahlia Herring from Albany. The first thing I wanted to mention, I noticed that the ENL Summer Academy will happen this year, and I'm very excited, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart about that, because that really was missed last year, so that's really quite wonderful. I'm going to use the calendar as an excuse to talk about Ramadan and state assessments and Eid. So I found out, we had a meeting of the Refugee Roundtable, and I was shocked to find out that this year, and this is not anything that is under your control, but this year the State Ed Department had scheduled 4 assessments that fell during Ramadan. And if I'm getting choked up, it's because I'm thinking about the young people, teenagers, who are fasting during that time and have to take Regents Global 2. There are two science at grade 8, and then there's the NICESLAT exam, which really is for immigrants and E&L students, and at least part of that falls in Ramadan. I did protest this to the State Education Department, both verbally and in writing, and you know me well enough to know I will keep on doing that. I must say that they were pretty much, they were very polite and very shocked. I don't think it even occurred to them. They did say something like, well, we do take care of Eid because it's one day, but there's 30 days in Ramadan, and that, as you can imagine, gave me an opportunity to spout off a little bit. So that's for this year, and nothing you can do about it. Obviously, as a community activist, I will be looking at next year as well, because I think that's a useful thing for me to do in conjunction with you as a community partner. From what I can tell, because Ramadan is earlier in the next year, the only thing that might be a problem is the NICESLAT exam. So we're going to keep looking at that. But I wanted to go to the following year, and the reason for that has to do with Eid. You've heard a number of people speak about Eid here, and I know that you have contemplated the possibility of having that as an official holiday. I know that it is always difficult, that calendaring is very difficult, but I would suggest to you there are other holidays, including Good Friday, that you have taken into account. And the fact that Eid would be coming on a school day this would be in 2021, that gives you some opportunity to see if you could plan for that. And that day would be Thursday, May 12th. Thank you.
Thank you. Freda Peretz?
Can't believe she has us sitting on the right, but here we are. Freda Peretz, Albany. Many of you are used to seeing me here yelling and screaming, and after the last meeting, I spoke to several of you, if not all, and I figure I wanted to be on the record that this new team and our superintendent, see now I'm going to cry, make for an extraordinary team. Watching how the staff all participates so fully, so openly, how the board addresses issues openly and honestly, and supports the superintendent and the staff is just, it was extraordinary. I mean, I felt like I was at my daughter's graduation. It was, and so I really want to congratulate everyone. I actually thought for a few seconds about, okay, now I don't have to come anymore. No, I will be here. I'll be here in any way that you all need me. I will be here to make sure nobody slips, because 2 weeks ago, what I heard from everybody, it was about the children, about the children, about the children. And I finally have started to believe that. And so I really thank you all for all your hard work. I will continue to be here. I will help in any way I can. But you should all take that minute to congratulate yourselves too. Everyone has just really been extraordinary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's hard to move on because we certainly appreciate that kind of positive feedback, which we get so rarely. So we'll take a moment. And then now, move on to work. We now move to the part of our meeting we call routine consent. During this part of the meeting, we approve routine matters for the district. These usually include items like contracts, field trips, hiring of personnel, and other similar matters. We vote on these as a group with no discussion, which allows us to use our meeting time more efficiently. Each Board of Education member has the option to set aside any routine consent item in order to require a full discussion and a separate vote on that particular item. With that introduction, I'd now like to entertain a motion to adopt the routine consent agenda. Ms. Wilson, seconded by Ms. Smith. Are there any set-asides? Seeing none, all in favor of adopting the routine consent agenda as it stands? That is unanimous. Excellent. That was commentary there. I thought my microphone was off. Okay. That moves us on to the policy portion of our agenda. Tonight we have one policy that we are going to act on. As always, we discussed this fully 2 weeks ago, and there are a relatively large number of relatively important policies for discussion. So I would anticipate that while we were very quickly through routine consent, we might spend a little more time on policy. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Chittoor.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. As you already mentioned, the first item that we have is an action item for policy 9520.2, family and medical leave. We discussed this at the last board meeting. Shall we vote on that first?
So let's entertain a motion to adopt that policy as amended. Ms. Alexander Mann, seconded by Ms. Smith. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of adopting policy 9620.2? Do I have the right? .2.
9520.2.
9520.2 as amended. That is unanimous.
As you can see, the policy committee has been really very busy. We have tackled pretty much all of the policies in our policy manual, except for I think 3 or 4 remaining now. We have caught up with everything. So today there's a whole bunch of policies that we'll be discussing. The first one is 8332, which is district-owned cell phones. There is also a policy 8330, which is closely linked. It is authorized use of district-owned materials and equipment. So the first one, which is district-owned cell phones, pertains exactly to that. Cell phones that are owned by the district. So this policy is for district employees that are required to carry a district-owned cell phone in order to meet their job responsibilities, and it outlines the guidelines and care expected of the employee. And it's associated with 8330, which is the authorized use of district-owned materials and equipment, which is a new policy for the district, and it provides a summary of what is expected of the individuals who are loaned district-owned materials and equipment, including computers and other things. And this policy also explains who's liable if there are losses or damages to the equipment. So they're closely linked policies, so if you have to discuss them, I would rather we discuss them together. Any questions about these policies?
Any discussion on these two policies, which we will move for adoption next time? Okay.
So then we have a whole bunch of policies that are related to student achievement. First one being 4750, which is promotion and retention of students. This policy is a required policy, and it outlines the guidelines for student promotion and retention. There are changes that have been made to the process with the input of the committee that uses multiple data points, and updates were made to the high school section of the policy for a better understanding. One of the big changes is, the policy initially used to have promotion, retention, and also acceleration all in the same policy, and that's been divided now. So there's going to be a separate policy coming to the board later on, which will deal with the acceleration and enhance and enrichment for students. So this one deals with just standard promotion and retention of students. Any questions on?
Any questions on this policy or discussion? Ms. Roach? Ms. Krejci?
I wondered if you or someone from Cabinet could go into more detail about a retention rating scale. Is that some sort of rubric?
Yes, it's one of the ones we looked at is called the Lights Retention Scale, and so it gives you a rubric, so to speak, to kind of look through where it may be appropriate to retain a student. But one of the key components of the policy is really having a collaborative team through our response to intervention model, which you'll see in a later policy, actually be able to have in-depth conversation about a student instead of it being an individual principal decision.
Any other discussion before we move on to the next policy? Dr.
The next two policies are 4100, which is response to intervention or RTI, and 4325, which is academic intervention services. So RTI is the policy in RTI 4100 is to ensure that all students in grades K through 8 receive appropriate instruction in general education using a multi-tiered approach. The district's process identifies student challenges early and provides appropriate protocols and procedures to ensure student success in general. Changes were made to the policy to remove sections that were really supposed to be in the regulations or handbook, or rather the procedure, because policy is only policy and there's a separate procedure associated with every policy. So we cleaned it up so it's easier to read and understand. The 4325, which is academic intervention services, was also updated to reflect the newest NISBA sample. As you've already seen in past meetings, we have tried to keep our policies very similar to NISBA policies so they're universally acceptable if possible. And this policy 4325 is also linked with 4100, which is a response to intervention, since they really go hand in hand.
Any questions, comments, or discussion on this? Ms. Lang?
So I just want to say real quick before, as somebody on the policy committee, we also talked about practice and some of the things to make sure that we're streamlining the policy to make sure that things are accurate. So we also had a lengthy conversation about all of how RTI is getting into the schools and getting communication to the parents as well.
Ms. Krejci?
My first question is, will the information that's being removed from the RTI policy about tier 1, 2, 3, et cetera, go into a reg? And the second question is, for 5 years I've always been a teensy bit confused about the difference between AIS and RTI. Would it be correct, or at least helpful, to understand AIS is kind of like tier 2 and tier 3 of RTI, right? AIS is bringing out small groups, is for small groups of students that aren't succeeding, and RTI is like a pyramid where it's everyone gets the base level and there's smaller levels for people that are. Anyway, if someone can kind of explain why they're not the same thing, that would be great, because I noticed the elementary school uses RTI as. I noticed you said the elementary school used RTI instead of AIS, and I was thinking, isn't it like a form of AIS? But I guess it isn't.
So let me start with your first question about when you would see the regulation pieces available. I will actually be here sometime, I think this summer, June, to roll out the actual AIS and RTI plan and the handbook. So you will see all the different pieces that form those two policies. The second thing is AIS is an SED mandate. It came back, I think, in 2000, and it was brought into play to provide services for students who were at risk at not meeting the standard or proficiency on state tests. And so that mandate stays the same. Several years later, response to intervention came as it's a little bit of a philosophy on how you actually approach providing those services to students so that they can be successful on state tests. It is also a regulation in what the state allows us to do is to substitute RTI for AIS at the elementary level. So we in our district, we actually adopt an RTI philosophy, kind of K-12, and you'll see that when we give a presentation that's sort of our mode of delivery. And but yet we have to stay true to that AIS mandate at the secondary level. So I don't know if that fully explains it, but there'll be a lot more coming this summer, and we'll go in at length. The two policies do work hand in hand. You're correct in thinking that the RTI is more. It's addressing the elementary because it is actually in place of AIS.
Thank you.
And I'm just trying recalling from the policy committee, didn't we talk about including some links to this more complete document with the regulations and the details in it right near the policy like we would with a regulation? It's a little more than a regulation because it's a guidebook, but that it would be accessible to the public through board docs as if it were a regulation. Am I right about that?
Yes.
Anything else on RTI and AIS before we move on? Dr. Chatur.
So next one is 9710. This is an easy one. It's travel and conferences. This policy was updated to align with New York State guidance documents in accordance to travel and conference procedures and allowances. So the way the present policy that exists, it had certain rates that were listed, and those can change with time. And so the new updates actually link to the GSA rates that are allowed by New York State, and so it's more fluid and dynamic. It also provides specific exemptions where some of these rates would not apply. One example is, let's say there was a conference in New York City, and the GSA rates are much lower than the the hotel rates around the neighborhood where the conference is. There would be an exemption for that. And this is the same policy that is applied throughout the SUNY system, for example. So it's adopted by many entities. So we figured it's good to put that in policy and give those exemptions.
Any discussion or questions? Moving on.
Okay. The last policy for discussion is 4710, which is a grading system. This is an important one, and if you remember, we actually looked at it in August of last year. So you'd be surprised that it's coming back again. This is because this is going to be refined again. It'll probably come back again in 6 months or so. So grading is considered a positive tool to indicate achievement and development in each class and subject in which a student is enrolled. This policy is designed to ensure that teachers across all secondary grades and content areas are consistent in their approach to the calculation reporting for quarterly grades. Each quarterly grade will be calculated based on a formative and summative assessments. The changes made are the first steps that will help move secondary grading policies towards standards-based grading. So in a quick nutshell, if I was to walk you through this policy, the highlights would be there would be 4 report cards that would go home. So parents would be constantly informed of the student's performance. And then when it comes to 6th grade, the 6th grade across in elementary schools as well as the middle schools will be considered falling under the secondary policy. And there are some guidelines as to that the staff should have the grading guidelines by the last school day of the prior academic year, and then the report cards. If the departments are requiring a variance, they must do so no later than June 1st of the following academic year. So grading systems will be in place before school starts. There's also guidelines that have been changed as to 30% of the grade would be formative assessments, and 40% of the grade would be summative assessments. We dropped down the percentage of summative assessments from 50 to 40, and mainly because this gives students more of a chance to relearn things and have the opportunity to achieve a better grade. So it gives them more opportunities to actually score well as they relearn and ensures that the subject matter is taught to them properly. The minimum passing grade for all subjects is 65%, and each grade must be a minimum of 55% for all courses, except in the 4th quarter, where if you don't make it to the 4th quarter, where you're going to be close to graduating, getting a 65%, you're pretty much going to be held back. You only get a 55. That's a minimum. Correct me if I'm right. So a student may be awarded the minimum 55% in the 4th grade due to extenuating circumstances as determined by teacher and/or building principal. So these were some of the highlights of what important changes went into this policy. And like I said, I mean, this grading is an important aspect of school education, and so I'm sure we'll be reassessing this policy again, and if any other fine-tuning needs to be done, it'll come back. Any questions?
I'm just before we go on, I'm just going to emphasize that point that there is a fairly robust discussion happening through cabinet and staff about a full re-look at the grading policy, which will be coming. So these changes are to be perceived really as around the edges or tweaking policy changes, not the substantive overhaul that's coming. Discussion, comments, questions on grading? Ms. Krejci.
I just had a couple questions. The first question, let's see. The first question was, I noticed that in order to qualify for the minimum grade of 55% in any given quarter, a student must have attended class, but there's no specific attendance requirement. Does that mean they must have come at least once?
That is correct. So if they attend one day of class, they get the minimum passing, or the minimum grade of 55.
I think it might maybe be better to spell that out. Must have attended at least one session during the quarter or something, because I thought that was just a little big. The other thing is, I think I understand this. I think I understand taking that 55% minimum out of fourth quarter. If I understand it correctly, it's to avoid, you can't save up. You can't be like, if I get above an 80% for second and third quarter, then I can do nothing fourth quarter because I'll at least pass. This is to remove that type of incentive. But then the student can be awarded the minimum 55% in the fourth quarter due to extenuating circumstances. That sounds like if the student's putting forth some effort, but not quite enough, wouldn't be enough to pass otherwise.
Right. So it's difficult once the fourth quarter ends to leave a grade open and have students submit assignments once the school year has ended, because grades have to be submitted by a certain point by June 30th. So with the extenuating circumstances, so if a student comes down with a serious illness, we certainly don't want to penalize that student for being out the last 3 weeks of school and therefore not being able to submit assignments or take assessments. So we would grant some additional time for that extenuating circumstance for that student.
That's additional time, though. This is awarding them a 55. Does that mean they'd be awarded a 55 and then the grade would be changed?
So my understanding of the rationale behind this is that the rationale of having the minimum grade is to create a situation, to avoid creating situations where students can't possibly recover. By the fourth quarter, there's no opportunity to possibly recover because the school year is over. So I don't think that the intent had to do with saving up. It had to do with reflecting the actual performance in the fourth quarter and not creating an artificial minimum, since there's no hope of recovering to a passing grade in any case.
Right, that part I understood. I guess I was talking about the marginal student where the grade would result in passing for the year if they got that 55 for the fourth quarter, but otherwise would not.
I did understand your question. I thought
okay.
you asked whether that was the intent, and
So
that
at
was not really the intent. That may be an outcome.
At that point, that if the student's actual performance in the fourth quarter is going to bring their score below passing for the year, then they don't pass.
So the student who scores or earns a grade lower than a 55 in the fourth quarter will receive the actual grade and not the minimum passing of a 55.
Right, I understand.
Hey, Ellen, could you repeat the scenario you're thinking of? Like, what would the grades for the first 3 quarters be that would lead to the scenario you're trying to raise? Because I'm not sure I'm understanding.
I guess what I was saying is, let's say they have 65, 65, 65, and then fourth quarter, their actual grade is, let's say, 50, and don't quote me on that, but well, that actually, yes, of course, that would average out to less than 65. Where if somebody, let's say, had grades of first quarter 30, but we've brought it up to a 55, and then 55, 70, 65, 65, it would be something where if you took their actual grades, they wouldn't pass, but because we don't want to set anyone up to fail all year, we're privileging people that are doing poorly in the earlier quarters than people that are doing poorly in the fourth quarter. And now that I'm talking about it, I'm saying maybe that's intentional and desirable from the point of view of mastery. I don't know.
I think I understand the question now. The question is, if the grade order were changed, so the quarter that the student did poorly on was the first quarter, their year-end average would be different than if it's in the fourth quarter.
Where the actual grades in each quarter might be the same for two different students. Only one student, let's say one student had his house catch on fire first quarter and had a terrible quarter, one student B had his house catch on fire fourth quarter and had a terrible quarter, but student A gets to pass and student B does not.
So I'm going to ask if you would mind if we table this conversation, because we are going to discuss this again for 2 weeks, and we can talk about that a little more offline to make sure that we're all on the same page about how that plays out. Would that be okay?
Yeah, that would be fine. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else with a comment or question on the grading policy? Or Ms. Krejci, did you have another one? Everyone all set? Okay, so that is going to bring us to the end of the policy section of the agenda. And I think, if I recall correctly, glasses. Oh, Ms. Smith.
I'm sorry. So I guess I just want to make sure that the response to Ms. Krejci's question plays out, we will bring that back to the public session.
In 2
right?
weeks,
In
yes.
2 weeks. So, okay. I just wanted to make sure that gets
Absolutely.
a response.
It would absolutely get a response. So as always, all policies are brought for the first hearing and then the second. If we felt that it needed further discussion by the policy committee, we would bring it back to policy and then bring it twice to you all. But my guess is that this is something we will address quickly enough that we can bring it back for further discussion in 2 weeks. And I have made a note about it. So now this brings us to item G on the agenda, the community partners portion of the priority activities update. Mrs. Adams.
So thank you very much again, and good evening, members of the board, Madam President, and to our community partners. Thank you for coming out tonight and I would say celebrating with us some of the partnerships that we have going on. We know that our vision and mission and goals, part of our goals are that we want to strengthen our diverse partnership with our community members. And so while we can't highlight everything, because we have an extensive list of community partners that have come to the table to help us build strong children, we are also going to just highlight just a few of them for you this evening so that you can see some of the progress that's been made. And many of it's continuing, but it has a little bit of a different twist. And so we're looking to enhance our relationship with our community organizations so that we can provide those equitable opportunities that we so yearn for all of our students to have. And so community service is a key component of that. As you know, we've been using Passport for Good at the high school level, and we did modify it so that we could include the elementary students, as we have some schools that have family projects that they do for community service and service learning activities. And so the other piece that we're looking at doing this year is expanding to our middle schools. And so we're working on that as students engage in service learning activities. We also look at our community connections, the academic opportunities, and George and Randy are going to talk a little bit about that today. And then we have a special piece that I'd like to share with you, just hot off the press, and I'll save it for the end because it's exciting, apprenticeships and our internships. And so the first thing that we're going to start with is CityLax. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with CityLax, but it does help promote lacrosse for both young men and young women. And so I'm going to let George and Randy talk about that, and then potential of what we are looking at doing that we just recently talked about in expanding to our middle school and elementary levels. So I'll turn a little bit of the time over.
Oh, super, thank you. And thanks for having us tonight. My name is Randy Churchill. I'm the president of the Albany Lacrosse Club, and we're called CityLax Albany. I have a daughter, Reeve, who just graduated last year, played lacrosse for many years, and I have a daughter, Cole, who's in 10th grade. In fact, they're playing now, and I just came from there, and I was freezing to death, so I'm not going to take off my jacket. So we have formed partnerships with groups outside of the area, which I'm going to talk about a little bit, and then I'll have George talk about some of the partnerships we've formed locally. We have a relationship with U.S. Lacrosse. They are interested in developing inner-city lacrosse, and they're giving us some resources to try to do that. They are working with Cleveland, Ohio, a school district in Brooklyn, and Albany, New York, to develop a prototype for small city lacrosse, inner city lacrosse across the country, okay? Now, we get our name from a New York City organization, which is called City Lax. They have been operating a program for a number of years with about 58 middle schools and about 58 high schools and around 11 middle schools. They have a graduation rate of over 99% compared to 72%. And when I am speaking to you about lacrosse and the importance of lacrosse, our interest really is to get these kids into sports, into extracurricular activities. That could be music, that could be sport, that could be clubs. And then track the kids academically and in terms of what issues they're going through. One of the things that I think is unique about our program is we were actually paying one of the high school's community engagement individuals, coordinators, to actually track the kids who are playing scholastic as well as non-scholastic lacrosse. But again, we're making it very clear that we want to expand this so that all kids, or as many kids as possible, are in extracurricular activities. My feeling, I'm particularly interested in music. It's like learning a second language, and something like that is very important. So, I know, George, you can talk about our local partnerships.
Sure, thank you. My name is George Lavelle, and I'm a resident of the Capital Region since 1975. I live in the town of Bethlehem. But I'm very interested in lacrosse, especially for the opportunities that it can provide to young student athletes. And what our experience in New York City, we've learned that lacrosse players graduate at the rate of 99%. Now, they play in through May. So if you're in school in May, you're likely going to graduate in June. But the interest in the sport is keeping kids engaged. And what's different about lacrosse than some of the other sports we see on television, there really is no professional career other than coaching or running a program or things of that nature. There's no lucrative signings or anything else. So the end game is being successful in something else. Just like the NCAA commercials on television, vast majority of college athletes are successful in something other than the sport that they got there from. So it's transportation for young people to opportunities. And why is it relevant in the urban community? Because the sport, like many other sports, has taken off in the suburbs. There's feeder systems for kids that can barely walk that are already playing the sport. And so the urban kids are left behind, and colleges, which are by nature liberal thinking, want diversity. They want to see a different composition of that student athlete group. So there are opportunities that exist today in this sport because it is a very fast growing sport. It's been the fastest growing sport in America for the last 15 years. It's second right now to youth ice hockey, believe it or not. But most of your other conventional sports are declining fairly rapidly in terms of participation. So this is not about sports. Every time I go ask somebody for some money, they're like, oh, we don't do sports anymore. I'm like, no, this isn't about sports. This is about using sports as a vehicle to educate kids and help them be successful. So our goal here is to try to support the district to fill voids that competitors to the district in suburban communities have with volunteers and parental groups and all kinds of other resources to develop their athletes at a young age. If we can do the same here, you already have the program. It's already in your district. You have a lacrosse program. But in all honesty, I'm coming from a game where your team's losing by ridiculous scores. That's not good for anybody. So our goal is to try to provide support to the district's programming with extracurricular coaching, programming, equipment supply. We've lent equipment to the district. Whatever we can do to take the interest that a young boy or girl might have in playing this sport and cultivating it into a journey that gets the kid through high school and then creates opportunities for college placement. That's simple. It's not an expensive program. We believe that this program could run not only for the city of Albany, but for other urban districts in the region for probably $50,000 a year and be successful because the community is generous and willing to provide resources to support this inclusion opportunity. So our simple role here is to be in partnership with the district, to create opportunities for young boys and girls to try different things that may not have an end. Some of the things they see in life, they already know is a dead end. Well, this may not be. It's something new, it's different, it's growing, and there's a desire for colleges to see urban athletes coming in this sport. So our role here is just to provide resources and support and expertise. There needs to be a similar commitment on the district side to ensuring that the best foot is put forward in terms of who's leading these athletes, who's mentoring them so that they want to every day come out there and participate in this activity. But as I said, yes, there's sports involved here, but really this is about using a sport as a vehicle to help student athletes succeed.
So one of the components that we look at, one of the components when we talk about where the district is, we know that we have our men and women's teams here at the high school. Malcolm Gandy is also working along with La Crosse to help monitor grades, to monitor attendance and things like that, to ensure that we are maintaining the student portion first and then the athletic portion second. The other piece that we have put on the table, which is just in the discussion stages, developing some way that we can have some type of intramurals type of activities for our students at the elementary and the middle level. Excuse me. And so that is where we develop the love of playing the sport or being involved and helping kids at younger ages build that pipeline of being engaged in school in multiple ways. So that, number one, it increases student engagement. It helps students want to be more successful. They develop friendships. They learn teamwork. They learn problem-solving skills because every time that you're out playing a sport, everything doesn't always go your way. And so we want to make sure that our students have those problem-solving skills, that teamwork, that camaraderie and collaboration within the sport. And so this is just one way. Not the end-all and the be-all, because as you see, we have a list of items that we want to share with you tonight, but this is just one way of reaching our students in a different way to help them become more engaged in school. So thank you so very much, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you.
So the second person that I'd like to bring forward, you know him well, Mr. Barry Walston. And so Mr. Walston has been very, very active with our high school, our middle schools, and we have 3 programs right now that are moving forward. We've already had the Bard College tour. We have RPI STEM Day coming up, and we also have the HBCU tour in April. So I'll let Mr. Walston address those.
Great. Good evening, board. Vicki just left. She wrote just left. Wow. So I'm the president of Black Child Development Institute, and very unapologetically say that it is a great organization that supports all the children in the capital region. And we've had some really wonderful experiences, especially the BARD one, which was just recent. And we have students, we took 18 students down, and some of them I know have parents who are middle class and professors, and out of the 18, 2 of them had gone on college tours. And so, so I was shocked that this experience was really important for these students, and these were students who are excelling in the school. To see them interact with each other, to see them on the college for the first time in a rural area. And so it was really just a wonderful experience. We had the opportunity where they actually sat in the class, interacted with professors while they were doing their class, get a hands-on experience with digging, doing some looking for frogs and doing agricultural stuff that I don't do. However, they came back really, really informed. And I think the other thing was that they were able to distinguish between a community college and actually what a liberal arts school is. And so it was actually my first experience at Bard, and it was amazing. I did not know we had such a phenomenal liberal arts school in our backyard. And have the students understand that they have students there who look, when we talk about diversity, it was really a mosaic of students on that campus and teachers that were embracing each one of them. I was definitely conscious because even though we have high achieving students and they excel well in their classroom, without the exposure and being able to speak up for themselves, I found myself when I saw them in the class that they were timid and shy, right? And so we know part of that is exposure. They need exposure. And so I would always speak for them, and they're like, okay, I got it. And I would call them out. I would say, okay, Damara, it's your turn to answer a question. I'm sitting in the back, and they didn't know it was coming. But let me just tell you all that they represented Albany High School very well. They were just superstars. I sent the evaluation, so we didn't have a pre and post. However, when I got on the bus, I said, everyone take out a sheet of paper. Tell me what you liked about the school. Tell me what you learned about yourself, and if this was valuable. And so one of the students said, I learned that I wouldn't like a small school. I said, that's good. And I learned what a school is like as it relates to liberal arts. And then it says, yes, it was valuable. So I think, we have expectations of students, and once we push them, they will respond to it. Once they're nurtured and supported, because there has to be the nurturing and support there, I was very happy. And I was always happy to see our males who were there and present, and it was a really good thing. So we have also the RPI STEM Day. One of the persons who is a member of Black Child Development Institute teaches at RPI. And RPI, she said she wanted to bring students there, and no cost to us. This is the second year that the professor says, Barry, let's identify 7th and 8th graders. The last year, the students had a wonderful experience, and these are students who didn't get up, wouldn't get up. We had to call them right before the bus was leaving, and they got there once they got on campus, and they started building things and understanding engineering, and it was just an amazing experience. And so this is our second year. The president of RPI was there, very accessible. Again, telling the students what the relationship is with what they do in 7th and 8th grade and what they can be was really important. So that's happening again on May 4th. And then we have the HBCU tour, that this will be our second year. Again, we're students, and I think when we talk, what I want to say is when we talk about diversity, we're talking with the BARD students. We had African students, we had Asian students, we had Indigenous American Black students, and we had Caribbean students. And so that's a very different experience, and it was a breath, it was just refreshing to understand that and to make those connections. So the HBCU tour, which will be our second experience this year, will happen next week. We're urging that we get some males. I think we have 2 males. We have 18 females. And I think, again, what we want to do in this exposure is, as I said, often on any of the trips, that our young ladies are responsible for our young men. And I try to encourage them to say our young men are responsible for our young ladies. So it is not to the exclusion. However, when we see gaps and disparities, we have to be intentional about bridging those gaps. And so, I often, if it's more females, I say you must have a male that you know that you can encourage to have this experience with. And so if we're not conscious about that, we will continue to see the disparity and gap. But those are the 3 things. And we are also at North Albany Academy doing literacy with the first graders, where we give culturally responsive books to the students.
Thank you Thank you so very much, Mr. Walston. The other two items are really items that we are continuing. We are still working with our community roundtable and also the superintendent's roundtable. We are meeting next week. So the students are gathering and they're getting all of their concerns together to share with the superintendent all the things that we can do to work together to resolve them. The next item is My Brother's Keeper, and I want to thank Jody Comerford for her support and Lori McKenna for her support as well. As we have been working beyond what the State Department started us with last year with two fellows, but we added a third fellow. And this year, in expanding My Brother's Keeper beyond, you can, I think, go to the next one. Yes. In expanding My Brother's Keeper beyond the 3 fellows, we looked at criteria from the National Alliance program, and we now have 16 young men who have expressed interest in becoming members of My Brother's Keeper. And we also have our community-based organization, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity, that will be working alongside us. And so if Mr. Adams would please stand, because he is our lead mentor. And we also have our homeschool coordinators, Malcolm Gandy, who could not be with us tonight, but Michael Poindexter is here and Lionel Harris is here. And so what we're looking at doing is building a pipeline from not just the high school, but also middle level students and elementary students, building that pipeline of success for young men of color, mentoring each other, and also mentoring that younger generation. And so if you'll go to the next slide, please.
I think the gentleman would like to know if they're permitted to sit.
Oh, yes, yes, you are. Thank you. Let's give them a round of applause. So one of the key things with the first fellows of the MBK Alliance, they developed their own organization. They formed an LLC by the name of RITS, and it is reaching individuals through STEM. And so they are looking at using the STEM strategies, practices, modules as they work not only with each other, but now how do you foster that engagement with young men who are younger than they are, so building that component. It also looks at tutoring and, of course, community service. And we love videos and we love sharing out about our students. And so if you remember Darryl White from last year, he did attend the HBCU tour. He was one of the first fellows. And so I think that he says it best with regard to what RITS is about and My Brother's Keeper. So if you will please observe.
As young men and boys of color, we are already set at a disadvantage, lacking the resources and materials that others have. It is our God-given right to become the best versions of ourselves, but the barriers society has set upon us makes it difficult to find success in a world full of adversity. The My Brother's Keeper Alliance caters to young men and boys of color, providing them with the skills necessary to breed success. The My Brother's Keeper Alliance integrates lessons on financial readiness, male empowerment, and college readiness. The My Brother's Keeper program has helped me see my community in a different lens, involving me in numerous community service and volunteer events around the city. I was involved in the Albany City Thanksgiving food drive, as well as the Toys for Tots Christmas toy drive. In addition to that, I attended a meet and greet event where women of color throughout Albany were recognized for their achievements. The most important lesson that I learned throughout my MBK fellowship is that being able to put your own people in a better position is a great thing. Every day I see kids in my community collapse in the pitfalls of the streets, not having any guidance offered to them. Coming from the same place they do, I know it's difficult being able to find a role model that doesn't just play basketball or is an entertainer. In an effort to be that big brother to the city, for my fellowship project, I decided to create an organization called RITS. RITS stands for Reaching Individuals Through STEAM. RITS takes principles from the MBK, providing young men and boys of color with empowerment. RITS provides tutoring and homework help and also offers programs for science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. RITS doesn't just help the kids, but they also offer peer-to-peer training for the mentors. In addition, every member of RITS is required to participate in community service. RITS is important to me because it helps get young kids of color off the street and gives them something to do after school. It matters for my future because it allows me to leave a lasting imprint on my city. And like I said before, the best feeling is knowing that you're able to put people your own people in a better position of success. And it's better for them because they can actually find a career that they want or find something that they're passionate about and make it into a career possibly.
So if you remember when Darryl was here last year, very different how he is able to express himself now. But here's the thing. For all of us who have done videos with Jake, he does not allow us to use cue cards. And so I am so thrilled and impressed with the young man that Darryl is and the young man that he is becoming. He is truly a role model among his peers, and I just can't say enough about him. But just so that you know, it is a worthwhile program, and we are very happy to expand. The next piece is something new, and we have a Girls Beyond project, and it started fledgling. And I would like for Siobhan Colmner-Reed to come forward, or if she would just like to stand, it's okay. But come on up. So we've had some conversations about what we do with our young men, but then we also have to say, what are we doing with our young ladies? And so in reaching out to our young ladies, and I'm going to ask two other ladies to come forward. You all know Mrs. Linda Jackson Chalmers, please come forward, and Ms. Stacy Dobbs, if you will come forward, please. These two ladies are members of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. So go figure that one. So we have partnered with Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated and Girls Beyond on a girls project. And so you can read the information for yourself, but I will just kind of give a high-level explanation. This is looking at young ladies in non-traditional careers that look at international studies. It also looks at STEM and just that global awareness. And those are things that we are really interested in exposing our young ladies to Worlds Beyond Albany, and thus the name Girls Beyond. And if you look at the next piece, you can see the modules that they are exposed to in 7 different sessions, and then they'll have educational experiences to support those experiences, visiting the United Nations in New York City, going to the African American Culture Center in Washington, D.C., and then experiencing foreign government and seeing what that may be like in, experiencing foreign travel at a very different level, as well as global medicine. And how do these careers not only impact locally, but impact us at a global level. And so these are just a few of the activities that the young ladies will and have engaged in. The most recent thing that we have 8 young ladies, and so starting small, but we have 8 young ladies that are participating, and most recently they participated in a global impact project where they took pillowcases and made dresses for younger girls in Haiti. And so that is one of the projects that the sorority participates in. And so now passing that on to younger girls to support younger girls, not just locally, but also globally. So did I miss anything, ladies? Wonderful job as usual. Okay. So thank you so very much, ladies, and we appreciate all of your support in the Girls Beyond project. So thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause. I'm noticing a theme here. You're doing a great job. So the next piece with our community partners would be our academic opportunities. And so we have partnered with Black and Latino Achievers, 7th through 10th grade. We also are still, I met with Mr. Cyrus, who is the new president of the NAACP. He is extremely excited about moving forward with the AXO competition, which is sponsored by the NAACP. However, there's extensive planning that has to take place, and the framework and structures have to be put in place. And so we're looking at a 2020-2021 projected timeframe for participating. This year we have 9 students who are a part of Sponsor a Scholar, and we still work with Brooklyn, the Business Alliance, and work-based learning opportunities for our students. Internships and business partners, we have several of them that are just taking off. This year, we do have the STEP program, which our students have participated in before, but what's hot off the press, and I am so very excited to share with you, it has to do with the Albany College of Pharmacy and Health Services. And applicants must be current high school juniors on track to have completed a biology and chemistry course by July 1 of the current year. Preference will be given to students attending Albany High School, Albany Academy, or Albany Leadership Charter for High School Girls. The anticipated maximum student enrollment for the summer would be 6 students for 2019. All 6 openings have been offered to Albany High School students. And our recipients are Crystalite Vaughn, Olivia Lopez, Ian Muscatello, Mackenzie Stevenson, Carmela Chinko, and Tracy Ga. And so we are so very happy about our 6 students that are going. And we had over a dozen students that applied for this, and it was diverse and everything. And I'm just so excited that all 6 seats have gone to our students. And so I believe that concludes my report about our business partners and upcoming events. These are our 2 partnerships that we have coming up in June and July, and we hope to see all of you there.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Adams, and also to all of you who are here with us tonight. We thank you so much for your work with our children. All the time, we realize how important it is that they have exposure to the broader world than we can give them within the walls of our building. So thank you so much. We have allotted 10 minutes for questions. We could ask easily 5 hours of questions about these wonderful programs. So I think we're going to all be cautious and try and ask either high-level questions about Mrs. Adams' intentions and the way this program is structured, rather than getting into the nitty-gritty of how each one is. We have a tendency to want to know how everything works. We're very curious people, but we can do those questions maybe offline if we have them. So does anyone have any questions or comments for Mrs. Adams or for anyone else? Ms. Wilson.
And I promise I'll go at breakneck speed. First, I did go to the...
Ms. Wilson, I'm just going to remind you, we're going to try and do one
Yes.
question.
These are all compliments, not questions. So I went to the April 9th a Brooklyn CT Business Alliance where you highlighted the Skills USA, and I think what people can't appreciate from that is how big of a deal it is. It goes to the State Fair campgrounds, and they really utilize all of that space, and you get that hand-on skills, so that's excellent. Also, it's compliments all around throughout the entire presentation. The only thing I wanted to point to is one of the things that STEM careers for women, and something to possibly consider is I see a lot of language like women in tech, women in STEM, which is a very small change, but it's a substantially changed, I feel like, the perception around that.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Anyone else? Dr. Chatur?
I mean, you guys are talking about STEM. How can I not make a comment? This is also great. But what I love about the fact that some of these programs, the way they are structured, is not just teaching the kids about STEM, but there are things like effective communication, project planning, leadership development, and most importantly, financial literacy. In fact, the young student who went to the Black College tour last year, I mean, he is an LLC. This is entrepreneurship. This is awesome. So, I mean, I love everything that's going on. I just want to highlight those things and say kudos.
Ms. Lang?
So I want to say thank you to everyone, and thank you for listening to each other. And I want to say that this is something as well where the communication and the trust comes in. I think especially some of the things that you've said tonight, where maybe we can do better as a district, or where we need to do better. And I applaud you for having those communications and just enhancing where we can go. And one of the things that Mr. Barry, thank you, said about being surprised that they had not done college We do have a college and karate class, so I think that as a freshman, it's mandatory. So I think just kind of working together with the community partners and seeing all of these different highlights of what's happening versus what's practiced, I think is really crucial, that we're all listening to each other and just trying to enhance everything that we can do together. So thank you.
Ms. Smith?
Thank you. Compliments as well, and thank all of you for being here. I continue to be really, really, really moved and impressed by the level of support from community, and it's been something that I haven't seen in a while. All of you who are here from various organizations know this district cannot do this work alone, and so I am personally grateful and thankful that you're here. You're here with Superintendent Adams and staff to make things super, super better for our youngsters. Thank you.
Ms. Krejci?
And I just wanted to echo my fellow board members in the kudos that these are such impressive programs, and I like that they're tailored to small groups of students that are small groups of students for which they'll be more effective. In other words, the young men may need something different than the young women, and it's tailored to them. I love that. I really love the Albany College of Pharmacy program, especially because it's a paid opportunity. It's not asking students to choose between making money and having an academic experience. I think that's fantastic, and I am so proud of all of our students who have done that. I'm sorry, I just had a second thought.
You can flag us down if you remember in a minute.
Oh, yes, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, I can't think of it.
Ms. Alexander Mann?
Well, I too am going to compliment all of the different community partnerships that have been developed, some in a very short period of time. And also, I wanted to point out one in particular, the Black Child Development Institute has, Barry, Mr. Walston, you have been the face of that in the Capital Region for many years. And I'm a bit biased. My aunt represents the Mid-Hudson Black Child Development Institute, just the dedication that comes with doing this, because many of the folks that are here and a part of these initiatives also have full-time jobs and families, and that matters. So I just appreciate all of you. Thanks.
Ms. Krejci?
I remembered what I was going to say, thankfully, which was that until I read this PowerPoint, I had never heard of that Act So activity that we were mentioning participating in, but I looked at it. It's African American Student Olympics and all types of Afro-American Cultural, Technological, and Scientific Olympics. It looks amazing, and like it would be a fantastic opportunity for students. So I'm so excited that in addition to continuing to partner with organizations like BCTI, we're going to be working more closely with NAACP. Just great things are happening. Thank you.
If I could just share a little bit about that program. One of the things that is so amazing about the AXO competition that the NAACP sponsors, it is at a national level. And so the structure of what we have to do to prepare our students is across the board. And so the things that we have talked about include not just STEM or STEAM, it includes our theater program, it includes our music program. It really is a cross-curricular endeavor. And so we are looking at what would those components be, because as you can just see by me naming those 3 pieces, we have the pieces to the puzzle. Now, how do we put it together in a format that works with the NAACP? And so those are things that we will be doing over the next year, planning what that looks like.
Thank you very much for that additional information. I'm just going to close with one final thank you to everyone here, but also a request and an encouragement. You all have broad networks in your communities, some of which overlap with ours and some of which don't. We need the message to be out that the Albany City School District welcomes our community, our diverse community, to support us, and we welcome that kind of involvement. And we also need your help in encouraging people to vote on May 21st, our school budget vote, which is the second Tuesday in May. Third Tuesday in May, May 21st. The voter turnout on May 21st is deplorably low. Our average voter numbers are around 3,000. 3,000 people vote on the school budget and vote on your school board members. There are roughly 9,500 students in this district. If each of them had one parent or guardian who came out to vote, that would be 9,500 people voting, and we have roughly 3,000 people. We need your help conveying to people why it is important to vote and how much of a difference it makes. So please let people know we want our community partners in our schools engaging with our kids and helping us educate them, and we need your help to make sure that people know to come out and vote for the school budget. That's my soapbox for the afternoon. Anyone else? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So that brings us to our discussion item, summer school planning.
Good evening. So we are going to provide an overview of our summer programs for the summer of 2019. So we will have a total of 6 programs this summer. You will notice that number has come down a little bit from last year, and we'll explain in detail. The most significant impact is actually around the elementary summer school program and the consolidation work we've done there. And that has resulted in less school sites. We had 7 elementary school sites alone last year, and we're down to 7 total sites this year. Breakfast and lunch at every site, transportation for elementary, for all elementary students because we are consolidated into 4 sites, even though some of those will be neighborhood sites for students. And middle and high school transportation will continue to be based on the 1.5 mile requirement. Our total budget for summer school is just shy of $3 million. The majority of that coming from various grants, and I'll give you a breakdown in our next slide, and the remaining coming from general fund. This is a slight reduction in budget from this year to last year of about $18,000. So we always provide this slide for you just so you have a sense of all the funding sources that contribute to providing summer school programming for all the programs that are available. And even though it says, I said it was a majority of money coming from grants, there are several grants that support summer school. One of the largest is Title I. But we also have our Title III grant, which supports some of our E&L programming, our community schools aids, which support all of our schools who are community schools at this point in time, as well as My Brother's Creek Keeper, our Empire State After School Program grant, and our 21st Century Community Learning Centers grant. We also, why can't I see? Special education funding too for our extended school year program. So Jumpstart, there are no significant changes to Jumpstart this year. Last year, they returned to their home sites of Giffen and Arbor Hill Elementary School. The focus continues to be as much on the social emotional as the academic preparation for our current pre-kindergarten students who will be moving into kindergarten. And the primary funding source for that is Title I. Again, they will focus on ELA, math, and then the social emotional readiness of those students as the metrics for success of that program. Elementary summer school will again run for 5 weeks. It'll again be a full-day program. The biggest distinction this year is last year we had YMCA, LEAP, and 21st Century and Empire State After School programming all running an academic component using our district program, which is probably the most successful component, but in various configurations that made it challenging. We've worked very collaboratively with our community partners, our grants office, and our curriculum instruction director to consolidate all of those programs into one elementary summer school enrichment model. And so what will occur this summer is all students in 4 program sites, Arbor Hill, Giffen, Pine Hills, and Sheridan Preparatory Academy, will receive their academics in the morning from district teachers. In the afternoon, they will go to work in enrichment groups with one of our partners. YMCA and Boys Club will be in both be in each school setting. providing either the 21st Century Program, the ESAP program, or the YMCA program in collaboration with our district enrichment teachers. So that model will be similar in the afternoon as well. And through that, we hope to provide a more consistent experience for all of our students going through our elementary program. Again, we're very confident in the academic consistency and want to ensure that afternoon component is consistent as well. We will use the same metrics we've used in previous years. We'll look at attendance, post-assessments in ELA, writing, and math. And again, our focus is to ensure that students do not backslide over the course of the summer. And if we're able to get even more gains out of them, that will be a benefit, but our goal is always to maintain them. We focus on students who are achieving high growth, but may not be performing at the strongest level at this point in time, with the thought that in a 5-week program, we can continue to grow them and continue to close that gap. And our total budget for that is just shy of $1 million, again, coming from multiple funding sites, primarily grants.
So the middle school summer start program is a 5-week program. We're targeting students in grades 6 through 8 currently. This also includes our elementary 6th grade students as well. So we will work with the elementary principals and the middle school principals and guidance counselors to identify those students who meet the criteria to participate in the middle school summer start program. The goal is really to provide students who are struggling in their core academic subjects the additional instructional supports to move on to the next grade, whether it's middle school or on to 9th grade. The program will provide students with project-based learning opportunities, so it's not the same thing that they're getting in the traditional classroom setting during the regular school year. We'll also support and encourage positive behavior through preventative strategies and PBIS. And we've also structured the program into 6 30-minute instructional blocks, 1 hour for STEM, so there will be a science teacher and a math teacher working together to provide that instruction to the students within that 1 hour block. We'll also have a 1 hour humanities block where the social studies teacher and the English teacher will work together with a group of students. And then finally, a 1 hour block for PE and social emotional learning supports to students. In addition to the academic piece of things, we'll also have guest speakers each week, as well as local college presentations coming to the school to provide presentations on colleges and programs that they offer. We'll also have readings, special education, and ENL teachers to support the core teachers in meeting the diverse learning needs of the students this year as well. The metrics, again, very similar to last year, are the priority standards using pre and post assessments in reading and math, and then also looking at PBIS point sheets to determine whether or not the social emotional learning supports that we put in place are having an impact. And then, of course, not listed here, but also looking at the attendance of our students to ensure that we're meeting the attendance metrics as well. Title I and Title III grants are supporting some middle school, summer school, as well as the general fund for a total budget of just under $350,000. The high school summer program is scheduled for July 8th through August 12th. Regents exams administered August 13th and 14th with a graduation of August 19th. Make sure you have that on your calendar because we hope to see you all there. This is a Monday through Thursday program from 8 to 12:25. Location will be at Hackett Middle School this year as it was last year, and we're looking at a total enrollment of around 625 students, but we'll have a better sense once we have fourth quarter report card grades and Regents results. Funding source is Title I and Title III, as well as general fund for a total budget of $523,000. This is a shift from last year to this year in the general fund portion of summer school. Because summer school is credit bearing, there are fewer dollars that we can allocate using Title I $1 for summer school at the high school level. The special education extended school year program is being located at Eagle Point Elementary School. And again, this is for students who have extended school year on their IEP. So it's very scripted on the services that they receive during extended school year. Total budget is approximately $734,000. Once extended school year is identified and we know which students need transportation, we will have a better sense of what the transportation costs are at that point. And then finally, someone in the audience mentioned the return of the Summer ENL Newcomer Academy, and I am happy to report that we are bringing that back. What we found last year when we tried to embed the ENL Newcomer component into our middle school and high school programs, as well as at the elementary level, it didn't have the impact that it had when we offered a standalone Newcomer Academy for our students. So this will be offered at the same during the same time period as our elementary and middle summer programs. It's a Monday through Thursday program housed at North Albany Academy for approximately 120 students. And the goal is really to provide our newcomer students supports around basic literacy skills and an understanding of local civics for academic understanding. They're currently working on a newcomer checklist, which will help guide the metrics in determining the impact that the program has. Again, it's on the focus is on English language learners and newcomers to the district within the last 1 to 2 years of them being in the country. And that's it for our programs. Questions?
Thank you very much for the very efficient report on the many, many summer school opportunities that we offer in the City School District of Albany. Board colleagues, as always, let's focus on your most important questions first, since many of us may probably have the same question. So let's each ask one question. Who would like to go first? Dr. Chatur.
When we talked about the program review after the last summer school, one of the things you mentioned was with the high school program, especially since it was located in Hackett, you had some problems with attendance, and that was one of the biggest things that you identified as a challenge. So it's still going to be at Hackett this year, so how are you going to tackle that?
So it's really about the level of support that we're providing the high school summer school program. And so all 4 of our assistant academy principals will be supporting the summer school program, as well as the homeschool coordinators and guidance staff. So we will have a better sense of and more supports available to ensure that students are attending on a regular basis.
Ms. Alexander-Mann.
So, Dr. Wilson Turner, last year when you reported out, there were 2 issues. One was the number of sites, so that was a bear to consolidate and break down to 3. But the other was there an issue with registration, and how have you, or how has that been addressed?
So the registration process at elementary is different than what occurs at the secondary level. At the secondary level, parents go and sign up like the week before summer school starts. Elementary, those applications were in buildings last week. And so we rely on an application process very early in our process, and parents diligently fill them out. And our challenge is that I'll end up with 800 applications for my 734 seats, but I'll end up with 600 students actually showing up. So we have had conversations. Again, I'm working with partnership with the Grants Office and our Director of Curriculum Instruction, Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, and talking about how we can do some reminder communication with families as we get closer to summer school. So once you've submitted an application, can we begin doing some robocalls saying, don't forget, summer school starts July 8th, particularly with us starting a week later than we normally would have because of where the holiday falls. As well as we've planned differently in terms of staffing. So in the event that we do end up again with 600 students instead of 734, we've structured our staffing to be a little bit less robust. And we'll plan to adjust accordingly as necessary, which we haven't done in the past. And so we will continue to work on that. We've always, every summer, once summer school has started, that first day, whoever hasn't shown up, we do those phone calls. But what typically has happened is parents sign up now. not necessarily knowing what their full plans for summer are going to be. Other things come along and they take advantage of those things. So we do ask schools to oversubscribe in terms of sending out their applications. So we do have some backup students who we can then invite to attend.
Ms. Smith?
So on the special education extended school year program, and I do understand that you won't know exactly how many students, but you've budgeted a certain amount based on an average number. I just wanted to get a ballpark.
I would have to check with the director of special education for the exact amount, but based on the 2018-19 IEPs, we have a general sense of the number of students who will then carry over into the 1920 extended school year programs based on their 1920 IEP. But I can certainly get that exact number.
Just curious.
Ms. Lang?
Last year, we also talked about some of the metrics that we were using, and some of them were the Boys and Girls Clubs whose students were maybe higher than the kids that we'd identified in the summer schools. And so we weren't quite sure if summer school was actually making an impact on the kids that we were targeting, because we kind of did an entire metric of those academics. So I was wondering if we were going to, how the focus was going to be different and how we were going to measure our peer district summer school versus kind of the boys and girls schools and some of the other programs that parents opt to put their children in.
So I'm going to have to go back and look at that, because the same guidance was given to the Empire State After School program and 21st Century Learning in terms of who their target audience is. And I do remember that question. And I do remember asking our statistician to pull some data, which I may not have circled back and shared with the board, as to whether or not there was a significant difference between the types of students who attended summer school and therefore what our impact would be. And I don't remember it being significant, but if you want to say there will be a difference this year, the recruitment effort from the buildings is on those high growth, low achievement students, and so that population will be fairly consistent. Schools have always, put some other students in who may not have met that criteria exactly, but thought they would benefit from summer school, so we do get that skew. But if I remember correctly, there wasn't a significant impact or difference in our data results as a result of that.
Ms. Krejci?
Thank you for the presentation, and thank you. It looks like the elementary program is going to be a little more consistent this year, and I think that that's going to be good for our students and families. I did have a question, and I was really excited and pleased to see that the elementary and middle school summer school programs say that a disciplinary system loosely based on restorative justice principles, including conferencing and community circles, will be utilized. It's really exciting. I wanted to know first if that represents a change from the way things are done during the school year, or more consistent, somehow an expansion of what's done during the school year. But secondly, I remember last year, especially at the middle school level, there were behavioral concerns among some of the students that impacted the programming, and I just wanted to know what your plans are to proactively not have that be a problem this year.
Yeah, so at the middle school level, specifically around restorative practices, so we are implementing district-wide restorative practices under the leadership of Dr. Kinzoni Ball, PPS director. And we are training our summer school staff. We have 2 days of professional development, and we are training the staff around restorative circles and practices. So there is consistency from the academic school year to summer school. As far as the behavioral concerns that our middle school students experienced last year, we have, and we had something similar last year, but there's additional support staff at the middle school level from an assistant principal perspective and our homeschool coordinator. So there will be additional staff there to help support and encourage positive behaviors from our students.
Great, thank you.
You have a follow-up on that one? Sure.
Just a follow-up. But we're looking at this as sort of a kind of a fresh start. We're not going to, for instance, I think that last year where we had some field trips and things where we said, oh, we're not doing that again. So this year is a fresh start. We've got lots of support in place, and, we'll handle it there that way, and we'll continue with field trips or whatever experiences we want our kids to have. We'll plan for those things to happen.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm sorry, was that a specific question? Are there going to be field trips this year?
So right now, our two coordinators are in the process of planning what the experiences look like. We do have Friday set aside for colleges to come in and visit, special presentations, and also the possibility of field trips. So we're in the process of what that actually looks like for those Fridays.
Okay. So my question is whether we've started having the conversation, which I have heard sort of sprinkled comments about using summer school for advancement rather than for credit recovery. And I'm wondering if any of those conversations have started happening yet.
So yes, we have started those conversations, specifically at the high school level. This year, the conversation started too late in our planning process and budget process, so we are exploring those possibilities and opportunities for our students for summer of 2020.
Interesting. Thank you very much. Dr. Chator.
With regards to the middle school, again, when we did the program review, two of the things you guys had mentioned, one was having a rotating building use, and two was making sure that the tripper buses were available right from the beginning. So do we have those?
So yes, Denise Town is currently working on summer school transportation, and so we are extremely optimistic that those will be in place, and hopefully Ron is behind me shaking his head yes, saying that tripper buses for summer school will be in place and ready to go on day one. As far as the building use and rotating, we are doing that. For the last several years, Myers Middle School has housed a summer program, so they have an off year this year. And O'Neill is housing the middle school program, and Hackett again for high school. Next year, Hackett will have an off year, and Myers will be the location for high school.
So the dollar amount that you have for the middle school includes transportation?
Yes,
The tripper
it
bus?
does.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I had a question about the newcomer program, which appears to be roughly the same size as it was 2 years ago, about 120 students. I know our newcomer enrollment has not been growing as quickly as it was for a few years there. And so I'm wondering if that 120 is going to be mostly students who are returning for a second pass, or kids who've been with us for more than a year, or are these true, fresh sort of newcomers? Do you understand my question? And is this program something we're going to continue to see, or is the number of newcomers getting smaller so that we wouldn't have a sustainable program?
So right now we're up to 145 students at the AIC, which is just 30 shy of our maximum enrollment of 175. But to answer your question, so we are seeing a slow increase of the number of newcomers into the district, just not at the rate that we were seeing a couple of years ago. But the 120 student slot that we have available for the newcomer program will mostly be students who are new to our district or here in the country for a year or two, and specifically using the NYSA slot data to identify students in K through 12 who would qualify and benefit from the program.
Ms. Smith.
So this question may be just a tad out there, but I know that there are perhaps some smaller districts around that receive perhaps a little, maybe a lot less in Title III monies than we do, and maybe they don't serve or have a summer E&L program or serve their students as well. Is there been any thought of some sort of like Title III collaborative approach where districts would come together to support, say, a summer program or any other types of programs for E&L students?
It's like a consortium?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
we have not engaged in those conversations, but certainly it's something that we can explore. I think the feeling right now is that we have so many newcomers and English language learners that to allot some slots to other districts based on a fee or may be a little bit challenging just because of the pure number of students that we have to service.
And I would just only say that Title III money should, from those districts, should follow those children to the Albany. That's my only, yeah.
Any further questions on summer school? Dr. Chtor?
Last one. So one of the other challenges you had mentioned was with the staff, having a lot of the out-of-district teachers. So are we doing anything to promote our own district teachers to sign up for summer school?
So one of our biggest challenges last year was, and not probably at the level of secondary, was that because we had split our academic program both AM and PM, it became very challenging to get teachers to work the PM schedule. Some people loved it, but other people didn't. So for the first time, I think in a very long time, we went out of district for some of our staff for elementary summer school. This year, we look strong in terms of our applicant pool for the restructured model where all the academic instruction is occurring in the morning.
Ms. McKenna, did you have something you wanted to add?
So we're trying to get a jump start on the hiring. We actually have interviews set up for the middle school program, and based on the applicant pool, it looks like we will be in really good shape, at least for the middle school summer program, which is where we had the challenges last summer.
Thank you so much. Anybody else? Ladies, thank you very much. We look forward to hearing an exciting conclusion report in a few months about how great summer school was. That brings us to a further discussion of the calendar for the 2019-2020 school year.
Good evening. It's the calendar reprise. This should be pretty brief. I'm hoping we can see the family calendar so people have a reference. Thank you, Andre. So there really are just a few minor changes to the calendar. We brought the committee together to talk about two separate things. One was the unused snow days. We reviewed the unused snow days for continuity of instruction. Originally, we had them scheduled for May 21st, May 22nd, and May 26th, down towards the bottom. Thank you. And the committee came together and we talked about the fact that if we moved one of the unused snow days to the 18th, that would maintain some level of continuity, depending upon if we were to have 1 or 2 or 3 of those days reinstated. So the committee then wants to make the recommendation to the board to change where we had the 21st to the 18th. That was the first thing. The second thing that the calendar reflects is the staggered start for middle school, which I will talk about in a few more minutes when we get to the transition to middle school plan. So that's reflected here as well. Basically what will happen for our 6 through 12 students on day 1 of student attendance on September the 6th, we will have new grade 6 and new grade 7 students attend school, probably filling half the middle schools up, and then also 9th grade at the high school, and then on Monday would be the full day for all middle and high school. That was the second thing. And then in the process of looking at the unused snow days, we also discussed what if we had one of those weird winters where we needed more than 3 snow days. And so we did develop a little contingency plan that if we were to go beyond those 3 snow days that we allot every year, we would look at the 16th and 17th of April vacation as days that would be reinstated. It's very rare that we have to go to that extent, but we thought since we had the opportunity to review the calendar again, we would put that in as well. So those reflect the minor changes to the calendar for your review.
Thank you very much. I just want to reflect on the calendar in terms of the comment we received in public comment. We have changed one thing about Good Friday, which used to be contractually required. It is no longer contractually required as part of our most recent contract negotiation with the APSU bargaining unit. So that does create some flexibility for us there. We also, however, have reviewed, Ms. Bechtel produced for us a report of what the surrounding districts do, which has a tremendous impact on our need for subs. When we are very different than what surrounding districts do, it tends to increase our sub use, and every other district in the region has Good Friday off, so that is something that we are also cognizant of. So there's many, many, many issues that have to be balanced here. So that's my introductory comment, just because I didn't want to let that go unstated. And now, one at a time, Ms. Smith.
So again, back to the comment that Ms. Herring made. Have we, or are we as a district, and maybe this is a question for the board, going to at the very least, register a complaint with the State Education Department about the testing that will be occurring on Ramadan, or during Ramadan?
To the superintendent to answer that.
We would do what the board wishes. We absolutely, as you know, we are looking at, not necessarily this year because Eid falls on a Saturday, but what is the impact of our calendar on all of our community? And so moving forward, we're looking at starting those conversations a little bit earlier for the 2021 school year. As you can see, I'm trying to.
But I think you're thinking specifically of this year.
I'm answering it
Oh, okay, I'm
in
sorry.
a holistic format because I at this juncture, I can't necessarily speak to what those days will be, but we would be absolutely supportive in carrying out the board's wishes if that was something that we wanted to pursue, that the State Department take those days into consideration.
Ms. Smith, were you talking about Ramadan this year and this year's testing, or
Yes,
next
this
year's?
year's testing, Ramadan. So not necessarily Eid, but testing on
Changing
Ramadan.
the testing days now.
Ramadan, which lasts 30 days, several of the exams fall during that period of time, and I think the question from Ms. Smith was, would the board want the district to put in a formal complaint to the State Education Department?
This year, yes. And then my second follow-up to that, and again, I don't know what other districts, like even New York City, that has a substantially larger population, but you know how if there's an emergency on a testing day, like a snow day, they're not going to have testing that day. They're going to move it. So this seems to me to be something that is important and significant, Ramadan being significant to, a huge number of our community residents.
We can definitely request,
Okay.
I mean, and see what happens, and we can definitely pursue it, and with the backing of the board, absolutely.
Okay, well, that would be my suggestion, that we register complaint and also seek to find out what, if any, alternatives we as a district could put into place.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Ms. Krejci.
I don't want to get too far off track from the district's academic calendar, but I did want to kind of add on to that because I imagine there must be other exams. Certainly AP exams would fall within the range of Ramadan this year because it's May 6th through June 4th. Really, it's that end of year exam period. I have a foggy recollection from my own high school days that when, SATs were usually administered on Saturday mornings, but you could request that Sunday administration if you couldn't, for religious purposes, do it on Saturday. And I'm wondering, I might be at the point of registering complaint if it's not being handled satisfactorily by the State Ed Department and by the AP exam, by the AP test people, and so on and so forth. But I think at this point I would be, as a board member, asking how are the various exam companies how are they working with how are they accommodating students that have religious conflicts, and what are we doing as a district to support those students and help them get alternate testing dates? If that's been, I don't know if any students have even approached.
So the
Karen,
essay,
if you can address locally, I can take the higher picture. I tend to agree that I'm not sure that at a higher level that's been brought to the table for that consideration. Not that it's callous or malice, just that it's not been a consideration. Doesn't mean that by bringing it forward, it cannot be a consideration. And that's just thinking in terms of the big picture, but locally,
Well, the SAT, as you know, is offered many times during the course of the year.
I
So
was just using that as an example.
Yes.
I know that they've
Right.
always been accommodated to religious preferences in terms of Saturdays.
Yes, and then I would say in regards to the AP exams, I'm unaware of any accommodation for moving any of those AP tests to a different date for religious reasons. I could certainly look into it and find out what the College Board offers or does.
And what the
or-
state ed department is offering or not offering for accommodations.
Yes.
Thank you. And thank you for putting together the district calendar. Thank you to the calendar committee for bearing with us. I misunderstood a key directive, so I wasn't able to properly. You had to do that extra work after the one meeting because I wasn't able to satisfactorily communicate what I meant. So thank you so much for your understanding.
Oh, no worries, and thank you for being on the committee and sitting with us, doing the work.
Ms. Wilson.
Thank you all for your hard work on the calendar. November 27th. Hello?
Yes.
Sorry. November 27th is the Parent-Teacher Conference Day. Is that exclusively during the school day? And if it is, what are the accommodations for parents who have to work or cannot attend?
It is exclusively during the school day. It's an issue because the access is limited, and I have been given a charge by the superintendent to look very closely at conferences and how they could work. We had discussed a few ideas for this year, but we had gotten to the point where we wouldn't be able to institute some things because it might require some negotiation with unions, et cetera, et cetera. But we are going to actively try to figure out, and we have some very good ideas, we think, for next year. But I will say that our staff, our principals, are very good about accommodating parents that want to come in outside of that particular day. The middle schools have a structure to bring parents in almost, sort of year round. So I know that we do accommodate anyone who wants to come in or who we want to come in. It works both ways.
Thank you so much.
I don't see anybody else who looks like they're reaching for their microphone, but I do want to just make sure everyone, we would act on this reprised calendar in 2 weeks. So if this is not going to meet any board members' intent, now would be a good time to make sure that the calendar committee is made aware. Okay. Thank you very, very much for your hard work and for thinking deeply about this a second time. We very much appreciate it. Okay, the next topic, which I will remember as soon as I can look at my agenda, is the middle school transition. Oh, so you don't even need to step down. You're back. Welcome back, Mrs. Bechtel.
Thank you. I am really pretty pleased and excited to actually bring this plan to the board. Lori McKenna asked me if I would take the lead on this, and I did, and I'm thrilled that I was able to do it. So we brought a committee together of various stakeholders. They're listed at the end of this PowerPoint. But really, our focus was to think about how we help students make the leap from elementary school to middle school. And we did keep our focus on that transition in these meetings. The other transition to 9th grade requires different stakeholders, so we started here. The first thing that the committee did was really talk about why we were getting together and doing this work. And so we developed a mission about middle school transition. We really focused on it being comprehensive and equitable. People really wanted this experience to be for all students. We wanted to focus on working collaboratively with our families and students and the faculty from both elementary and middle. This is not just a middle school responsibility. There's also some elementary responsibility too, and there were some interesting things discovered. We wanted to pay attention to to academic, social, and emotional needs as students transition to middle school and those expectations and demands. So we did develop a mission, and then we talked about our purpose. We wanted kids to have realistic expectations of school. We wanted their first impression to be really positive. We want to respond to the needs of the students and their concerns, focus on family partnerships. We wanted to make sure that there was a really inviting and supportive and safe environment for kids. We wanted to focus on building a safe community and really overall just ensuring a successful introduction to middle school in a systematic way. So after we worked on our mission and our purpose, then we moved to how are we going to do that? And we really, what we did is we did sort of a finding activity of what is currently in place. And most of the things were in place. Some looked a little different in each building. So what we did is we gathered those together. We sort of made them consistent and systemized them and created these 6 cornerstone experiences. The first one, though, is sort of new because we are talking about having a shadowing experience for all incoming students, all grade 6 and grade 7 students to visit their middle schools. This year it will happen in the spring. Here on out, we will do this work in November, and the principals were really, they said because of testing and everything that's happening towards the end of the year, that really the best time, the space in the year to do this is November. So we did put that in the plan. We are going to have our summer elementary to middle school transition camp. This was modeled on what Mike Polino has been doing at Hackett for several years. He sat on the committee with us, really enthusiastic, talking about the transition camp, which is a week in August, mid to late August. Have the kids come in for 3.5 hours a day and really kind of do some fun stuff. They can learn how to use their locker and really get comfortable with the different spaces in the building. And so that's our first cornerstone activity. And the second one's the camp, and the third one is the staggered start. That was really resonated with staff. They really felt that if they could have the new kids, and particularly the new 7th graders, because they thought when the 7th grades they come in all together on that first day of school, some are new and some aren't. And so our kids that are not new have an advantage that day. And so the idea is to give those 7th grade students and the 6th grade students, of course, but that time to get acclimated to the building before they come all together. So those were our 3 activities that were specific for students. For families and students, the new family night in the spring, where we would invite families to come in and get some information about middle school, that we've done and that would continue to happen. Orientation for students and families in August. This would take place, Mike recommended that it take place sort of at the end, right after that summer transition camp, because it leverages the excitement that the kids have about attending that. And if ready, and I believe in most years there haven't been any issues with this, schedules could be distributed, and that would give kids a chance to go through their schedule, see where their classrooms were, et cetera. So that's exciting. And then our traditional open house that we always do in the fall. So those are our 6 activities. Of course, we have the school counselor outreach. They have done this traditionally, the fall and spring visits, but we've really sort of codified that occurs. They go to the elementary schools and are sort of that first, touch from seeing what middle school will be like. They are really the key employees on any of the days that the kids come to school, but particularly on the shadowing day. This was interesting. We had several elementary teachers that sat on the committee from the 5th or the 6th grade. And one of the things they said is that they felt that the counselors would come in and they talk to the kids and then they'd leave. And because they're not in the middle school, they didn't always know how to answer the kids' questions once folks left. So one of the members of the committee made up sort of a 1-pager kind of cheat sheet or whatever to hang on to that we'll distribute on an annual basis, so that after the counselor leaves, that 5th or 6th grade teacher has some of those key points that kids might ask about. So that's just a little way to give them, some information that they could share with kids or to answer questions. They felt also that because they didn't know, we really wanted to create a plan where they got involved. So the first thing would be to have the elementary teacher sit on the middle school transition team at the middle school. And then also the elementary teachers would attend the shadowing day with their classes. And by the way, I don't know that I described how this is going to work. We wanted to retain the sort of specialness of shadowing at the middle school. And so to sort of send, 100 kids in there on a day would feel, I think it would feel too much like a field trip and less the shadowing. So we decided to do this classroom by classroom. So when you have one classroom and you have 5 classes of 6th grade, you can take those 22 kids and divide them up between those 5 classes. And so that they're only in the classrooms, maybe there's 4 or 5 new kids. And that way they can, sort of maintain that special feeling about doing this shadowing experience. And they will be partnered with another student. It's actually a nice opportunity for the middle school principals to choose a variety of students. It really should be a different 25 kids that are partnered with the elementary kids coming in. So we've really given that a lot of thought. But I think it also will be great for the elementary teachers to choose a group and shadow with them as they go through their 3 or 4 classes that they'll go in, and it'll give them a sense of how the middle school works. And then the other thing that we talked about, and this was an idea that I had found somewhere else doing some research, is the connections breakfast and lunch. And I spoke to the principals about the possibility of release time for 5th or 6th grade teachers to come up to the middle school for the first half hour of the day and sit in on breakfast, or to come up at lunch and sit in on a lunch. Even if they just come in, it's when the children see them, they're happy to see their old elementary school teacher, and just sort of maintain that kind of connection as they're acclimating to the middle school. So people seemed very receptive to that idea, but we will have to do some work around making sure that can work. We also talked not only about elementary teachers, but the elementary principals, because they too play a big role in the kids' lives. So if they could pop in for 20 minutes in their incredibly busy lives, but if they are out going to a meeting and it works and they can run in and be there for 20 minutes to walk through the hall or walk through the cafeteria, we thought that would be a great way to maintain that connection for the children. And then finally, I wanted the board to be aware that we are going to have an experience at North Albany. They'll have the same 6 cornerstone experiences. The shadowing will occur at O'Neill. We had a robust discussion about that and decided that would be the best. And then but we can have a summer elementary to middle school transition camp right there at North Albany for those 5 days in August once we get our staff together. The counselors have already engaged, they're already engaging in the outreach to Schuyler and North Albany, and we're talking about how to make all those things work for North Albany Academy. Our next steps are to convene a middle school, high school team where really I think we're going to review our protocols and then just write the plan. We don't have it codified. People do things, we're doing it every year. We have freshman orientation in day 1, but we don't have it written. So that we'll pull folks together and we'll do that. And I wanted to give a little shout out to the committee. They were really engaged and really interested in making this a great experience for students. We had counselors, teachers, a couple of administrators. And now I'll take any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bechtold. lovely report. Very exciting to see some of the initiatives that the board has been asking and talking about for many years coming to fruition. It's a very exciting opportunity for us to see, especially regarding equity on shadowing, which has been on the board floor many, many times in my time on the board. So it's really exciting to see it coming to pass. Questions one at a time. Who'd like to go first? Ms. Krejci.
I just want to say thank you so much for putting this together and for making this something that's consistent and that every student transitioning to middle school will have the opportunity to do, because for a while, for years, it was seeming too much like some sort of secret initiation that you kind of had to find out about through the back channel. I'm serious. People, when's the transition camp? How do I shadow? And that's really wonderful, especially as somebody who's going through this year. Everything about it is wonderful. I'm really excited. I think one of the things you touched on was that it's going to be really valuable for the middle school students who are partnered with an elementary school student to have that experience, as well as to the elementary school student. And to that, along those same lines, I think one really good way to maintain these students' relationships with their elementary school might be to have groups of students go back to work with their elementary school students, or to let's say have a few 6th or 7th graders go back and present to next year's 5th grade class. So they'd be hearing about middle school from their own brothers and sisters, the older kids they know. I'd love to have kids be able to give back and share their expertise about middle school at their alma maters.
It's a great idea. I'll share that with folks.
Who would like to go next?
I can go next.
Ms. Lang.
I think, at least for my student, they did have Hackett kids come with the counselors and speak. At least that's my experience. So I want to say one thing. With the staggering start, I will have 3 children going, with 1 kid being able to stay home that day. So I have a very happy son who doesn't have to go to school while his sisters go to school. I want to say that this is fantastic. I really like this. One of the things that I would like to see, or at least talk about, is still more family engagement. And when we look at the document of the plan, it goes very in depth of what the guidance counselors are telling the students. And if I can find the plan of what the middle school is, the schedule, the code of conduct, just a really nice overview of the middle school. And I think that's what parents are missing. Parents really want to be involved, and perhaps maybe parents could be invited to that day that the guidance counselors come to the school, or one or the other. Or they could talk to the children if that's kind of something that's happened, but then invite parents to come and talk to the guidance counselor after they've talked to them. Because really, as a parent, I have really missed the scheduling of, I have no idea what was said in those conversations, but I also don't understand the scheduling going into middle school. I don't understand the transition. I don't know really who the teachers are. And so I think what's really missing from a lot of the topics here is that real family engagement one-on-one with guidance counselors. And I think if we're going to talk about the calendar and we're going to bring all of this together, the second possible parent-teacher conference would be used at that time to then set up the next year, and that would be very helpful, especially in those transition years as well, to look forward. But I'd really like to see if there was really some more family engagement in these topics. Thank you.
Who would like to go next? Ms. Wilson.
I found the report to be an excellent read. It was well done. And thank you so much. The term codified make my heart sing, because it really does speak to this being an apparatus and almost like a continuum for students to come into. Some considerations that come to mind per Ms. Krejci's scenarios about people getting sick or like missing. Like, what if the week that you break your arm is the week that you're shadowing? Like, that's one thing that came to mind. And also I was thinking about siblings. So what if you have a sibling at the school already, and not that that has any bearing on it, but just someone that the parent may be familiar, but this child is still going to gain from that experience, and just sort of like adjusting per that standpoint.
Do you mean having the sibling
There's someone already there, so e.g., there's someone at Hackett, maybe 7th or 8th grade, but that child still needs to have their own unique
Yes.
experience. So the opposite of Jen's question, like a parent knows what's going on at Hackett already, and the sibling knows, but the child still needs to have their own brand new
Exactly.
experience.
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
So I was, Ms. Crushey's suggestion sounded like a very good one. I can recall that my daughter, when she was at Myers, no, wait, she was still at Ash, actually, but it was the 6th grade. She was doing a service learning project where she and her fellow students went to Giffen to help work with E&L students on learning how to travel buses. And they wrote out together, after working with the students, a manual and all that, and then they all got on the bus together and you know. And so I thought that was kind of cool. So I like the idea of there being some, you know, perhaps relationship that's built up with the older students, you know, now that they're in their middle school going back. Likewise, something around like establishing pen pal stuff, you know. I just think that's kind of cool. Then, you know, you always know you have at least one friend when you go to your new school. Just thoughts, but I know you all have it, but it just triggered memory of some things that my daughter experienced, which were really nice. And again, thank you for this presentation. I think it's terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about the hiring for the transition camp and what you anticipate in terms of whether there's going to be sufficient staffing and the right staffing for that? Because this is a whole new thing for us, and our middle school staff is not used to being asked to work this extra half-day week.
I actually think this is something that the middle school teachers will embrace, because it's a week of kind of fun things that they can do with kids that is only going to help them have a smooth start to the year. Mike has never had any problem. He hires 11 people. We figured 11 for Myers as well. It might be less. I have to talk with Candy and how we'll do North Albany, but depending upon the number of students that we might expect. I believe Mike Polino said that between all of the things that he had done, he felt that he had, and that's when we didn't have this shadowing piece, he felt that he got to about 80-85% of the incoming kids coming into Hackett. And I think with the shadowing experience, we closed the loop. I feel like I lost your question, though.
No, you did a great job answering,
Okay.
but it was staffing, and you answered
And
it.
the staffing, yeah, I think it'll be fine.
Dr. Chator.
Once again, great presentation. What was I going to say? Oh, I like Jen's idea of using that second parent-teacher conference as a touch point where people can ask questions. Another idea that I had was, well, every 5th grader is going to have a graduation, right? So right around the day off or before graduation, sort of like a fun day, maybe a time slot could be created where the guidance counselor comes to this school. If it's on graduation day, the parents are right there. So
Right.
And here's your resource. You can come ask questions. He's available from X time to X time. You're already there in the school, so you don't have to make a special trip. That might be something to think about.
Can you talk a little bit about how this information is going to be conveyed to the students and when that it impacts? I know we're still getting regular questions from families. I hear there's no shadowing this year, and so we
Right.
would love to get the good news out so that we can stop what the misperceptions are.
So the communications department, if they haven't already, because we talked about it a few days ago, is in the process of sending home a letter to all parents about the shadowing experience, and sort of talking about a little bit about the background, I mean, to the extent that you would in a letter, and letting parents know that this will occur. And then, of course, we'll go through our regular field trip request process because we have to have parental permission when we're putting kids on the bus and heading down to one of the middle schools. So I think both of those avenues is a way to open up those lines of communication to parents.
And how about internally? Because sometimes we hear that staff are telling families there will be no shadowing this year.
So that's a good point, and I think that it reminds me that I need to send out a little communication to folks at each of the middle schools and let them know, and I could even send the plan and let them know that this is in place. I would assume that the principals, though, too. I shouldn't assume. Okay.
Any other questions for Mrs. Bechtel? Oh, Ms. Krejci.
Another minor point of praise on this report is that it mentions the possibility of DCS students walking to Hackett instead of being bused, and Arbor Hill students walking to O'Neill instead of being bused, which I thought was really great to get that in there with the walking, both for environmental and health reasons. That's fantastic. And also just to, again, amplify Ms. Smith's point about how great it would be to have these middle school students coming back to work with younger children. If we get them hooked on working with younger children in middle school, that's really the first step toward growing our own later on. So it works for that.
I will say
from
that one of the
perspective as well.
highlights of the Montessori Black History Month celebration is that almost always the Myers Middle School Jazz Band comes and performs at the Montessori Black History Month, and it entices those kids very much to be interested in jazz band at the middle school level, and just because they see these kids who are just a year older than them participating. It's pretty exciting. Okay, anyone else? Thank you very much, Mrs. Bechtel. Very much appreciate all of the hard work that went into this.
And I do want to add that this, coupled with the curriculum plan, with all of the classes in the coursework book, it just is flowing, and it's where we're supposed to be. So thank you.
Okay, so that brings us to board committee reports. Are there any board committee reports tonight? You guys are going to arm wrestle. Dr. Chator?
Well, I forgot to mention last time that Ms. Lange and I attended a workshop in Latham, one of the NISBA policy workshops. It was on school climate, and Superintendent Larry Smith was there, Larry Sprang from Schenectady, talking about how they're looking at schools, what's their perspective of maintaining a good school climate from the Schenectady School District, and a lot of interesting conversation and discussion, and I felt like we were already headed in that place, and I got a shout out for equity policy because we are the only ones who have it.
Anything else on policy? No? Ms. Smith?
So I was just going to mention that the Facilities Committee met on April 9th, not that long ago, that's last week, right? Yeah. And we continue to have on our agenda the Albany High School rebuild project, and that's going along well. We also talked more about the facilities plan for the schools, and specifically this time we're looking at perhaps a guidelines, but eventually perhaps a policy on that use of facilities, but done within the context of our own equity policy. So we have a number of things we're looking at. Colleagues, anything I've left out? And then I want to make sure I mention when our next meeting is. Any other thing? Ellen, I'm sorry, go ahead. Ms. Crutchy, rather.
I just want to make sure I understand, because I thought our conversation about equity and facilities wasn't so much use of facilities in the sense of outside organizations using facilities, but more equity that each student and each staff member, regardless of what school they attend, deserves equitable quality facilities.
Well, it was actually, Bill was really quick about it, but it was my statement of overlaying the equity policy with our facilities 5-year plan.
Yes.
So that's what it really was.
And I was so floored when I saw that email from you, Tabitha, a couple weeks ago, that I was like, this is brilliant. Thank you.
So again, I'm sorry about not clarifying what it was. It was actually, yes, around the facilities plan, and you're very right with that point. May I just also add that our next meeting is on May 14th, currently 5:30 to 6:30 at Academy Park. And we'll get the agenda out early. And thank you for that correction, Ms. Crutching and Ms. Wilson.
Ms. Lang?
Besides being at NISBA, with Shradar for the policy. I also attended the NISBA roundtable with the commissioner, and we spoke about two issues. One was ESSA and really understanding the new regs with us. I believe there were about 25 other districts represented by each school board with the commissioner, so it was quite a small group. And we also spoke at length about the sustainable equivalency in religious and independent schools and how SED is really going to start mandating oversight that we as a district make sure that every child that is in our district is getting a proper education regardless of where they go to school. And so those conversations are coming in and how that will affect our district and the superintendent. Thank you. Unless anybody has any questions.
Any other committee reports? Do we have an audit committee report?
No, we'll be meeting later this month.
And that brings us to other business items. Are there any items of other business? Ms. Wilson?
Just during the week that we're off, in collaboration with AFE, there's going to be 3 Earth Day events in Albany, one on the 26th, one on the 27th, and one on the 30th. We'll be back then. But that one's going to feature our school district, of course, at the Corning Preserve.
Any other items of other business? Ms. Smith?
Madam President, I just wanted to again raise this question of whether we wanted to register a complaint with the State Department of Education regarding the state testing that will occur during Ramadan.
Thank you very much for raising that again. And I think, and I would like some feedback back from staff, that where I felt the conversation was going was that at least at this point, the goal would be to raise a question with State Ed about whether accommodations could be made for our students who are observing religious holidays that might impact their ability to successfully take their tests, and that if that is met with a denial or insufficient accommodations, that then we would move to a complaint. I would definitely support some sort of a message along that lines.
Madam President, I think that we can do both in one letter. I would not want to wait to see what the response is going to be because I know State Ed. So I would like to go ahead and take care of both of those concerns because the problem is that the planning did not take in consideration in the first place, the Ramadan and other holidays. And I'm just really quite surprised given, New York City in particular usually raises a lot of cane about, the impact on its Muslim students. So I wanted to, I think we can do that in the same letter.
Let me just clarify that I was assuming that first bit would happen by phone and happen very quickly, that a phone call would be made and that we would learn quickly whether an accommodation was possible. If that's not a realistic assumption, then I completely agree that we have to do this before the testing. It cannot wait until after.
Again,
so.
I am suggesting, we can do that, but I am suggesting that this is a matter that I think we want to go on record publicly.
That's it.
And get a response back. And we can certainly in the interim make a phone call about whether,
I don't think we're
accommodations-
disagreeing with each other.
Oh, okay. Well, then you can just let me know what I'm hearing wrong because I don't see any difference. I'm saying let's do both in a letter. Let's also, if we need to, make a phone call and try to get a response. That can be done as well.
So I would absolutely support what I hear as a motion to register a complaint with State Ed if no accommodations are available for children who are having religious holidays that impact their testing. Does that get us to a point of agreement?
I am not making an if. I am simply saying, one, register I think the improperness of even planning for state tests to occur during a religious holiday such as Ramadan, and I would extend that actually to others if that's, and secondly, that the State Department should be clear with all districts what accommodations can be made for students that who are observing Ramadan during holiday,
So it
if
feels
I
like
may.
my own lack of knowledge is getting in the way here. I am absolutely in support of registering a complaint if in fact we're at that point where, so Mrs. Adams, maybe you would like to take the microphone for a minute and speak a little bit about what your understanding is of the current situation.
Okay, my understanding, I thought, was pretty straightforward, that we will already have the name of the person and the information of how to contact them, and just to contact them in writing and via phone with regard to, is this possible, to state our case with what we feel, what we think, feel, and believe around the respect of our populations and looking at religious holidays, and that the disconnects of our students without any accommodations as it stands now, and maybe clarity on what those accommodations may be, looking at what we could do and if that's even a consideration for them.
And I believe, Ms. Smith, if I'm understanding you correctly, your suggestion is that there, regardless of whether accommodations can be made, that you would like to register a complaint for the lack of communication around that proactively from the State Education Department. And
Thought. The lack of thought. And I think that, if I may, I think that that our constituents would really appreciate that support. I really do.
Ms.
Thank
Krejci.
you.
Yeah,
I just wanted to comment, just as I didn't know before I joined the school board, but as many of us know now, Ramadan comes forward every year, so it's going to be in April in 2 years, right during the normal time for state testing. So this will only continue to be an issue going forward. I would like our administration to find more information before we just get out there and say, based on something we heard, because I've been trying to Google it, whether state ed has any policies or things in place. I wouldn't feel comfortable writing a letter of complaint just based on something I heard in public comment. I would want to kind of have have our superintendent verify the issue and verify that they're not handling it sensitively before we do that.
Let's go Dr. Tutor, Ms. Lang, and Ms. Smith. I think that we're all coming at this from slightly different perspectives because we have a slightly different level of knowledge about
So
what the current situation is. Dr. Tutor.
The big difference here is not just it's a religious holiday. The challenge is because it's a religious holiday where the students are going to be fasting till sundown. And you're going to be taking a test where you're not in the best of your senses to be able to take the test. So it's offering them the best opportunity to be tested.
I don't think anybody is disagreeing that our students should not be taking tests during Ramadan. There's no confusion about that. It's just a question of whether and it sounds to me, what I'm feeling is that some people are coming at this with more knowledge about what has and has not, because I know literally nothing about what state ed has said about this, and I know there are other people who who have very clear understandings of what state ed has said that I just don't have that background information sitting here on the board floor. So I am absolutely very comfortable with supporting a letter drafted by staff reflecting their knowledge of where they are with our students. Ms. Smith, Ms. Lang, you wanted something, or you're good? And then, because I know Ms. Smith had a couple of comments she wanted to make.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's fine, but if you look at the schedule, you can see clearly that all students are being tested during Ramadan, and Dr. Shatur is correct that when we always say we want our kids eating and sleeping and being very well prepared. So I think that's what we know. I don't know what they've told districts, and frankly, all I know is that they haven't said we don't have any choices. So I'm just asking to, I'm not trying to make this hard or be difficult. I'm just simply, and we can phrase it in the way that we want. I'm just expressing some displeasure with the what I consider to be a lack of planning and awareness given the students that make up New York State. And I think, our equity policy calls upon us to take a stand. And I want to point out, if you Google the Seattle school district, Seattle Central School District, earlier this year. They have the same situation where tests are going on during Ramadan. They made one principal made an awful mistake of sending out an email suggesting that parents, basically kind of forego fasting and have their children eat, right? So you can imagine what that cost. So I just want to have us going out early, and I wish I had really paid attention to this when the calendar initially came out some time ago, and that is to say we can't do the wrong thing here. We have to stand for our students.
So I think based on this conversation, we're really actually all in the same place. We all agree wholeheartedly that the students should not be tested in Ramadan and that the more planning should be made. Ms. Adams said, I don't know if she was on mic, that she understands the intention of the board and she's prepared to go forth and do what needs to be done. Anybody else have any further comment on this? Ms. Lang?
I feel comfortable with the letter that you feel from this conversation having, and if it's okay that we look at it since, before, and we can, see where it goes forward, and I feel comfortable with that.
Yeah, I really think the position should come from both the board and the superintendent, because this is a district-wide, this is above a staff level, this is really a political thing having to do with what our state stands for and what our district stands for. So, any other business? Can I entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting? Mrs. Wilson, seconded by Ms. Smith. All in favor? That is unanimous.